It's possible that the US government will soon buy a lot of XRP. I'm going to talk about how that could happen to believe that it's more likely than not. Towards the end of the film, I'd also like to talk about the XRP price chart since XRP is currently doing very well after the last few weeks. But guys, the way XRP is pumping right now is really interesting. When we talk about what's coming in later this year, you'll be shocked. Your help is very much appreciated as always. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot to everyone who watches these movies and subscribes to the channel. These two easy things help me a lot. And if you want to buy some XRP, be sure to check out the link to my favorite market in the video's description. So let's get started, and I hope you all enjoy what I have to say. I'm going to start the video right away by talking about how the US government might find a very big amount of XRP. I didn't really think this was going to happen for a while, but it's looking more and more likely now. And that's if Ripple is going to use XRP to pay the SEC's fine. I thought for a while, hey, this can't really happen. It looked like something that didn't make sense. The SEC might not want it. I thought, in a strict sense, it needs to go to the US Treasury. There are also a lot of hoops to jump through, but as I learn more about the current government and find out that the head of the budget is Scott Bessent, who is very bullish on both cryptocurrency and XRP, it's beginning to make a lot of sense. If it makes sense, that's one thing. If someone like Brad Garlinghouse talks about this idea, that's something else entirely. Pay close attention to this talk, as Brad Garlinghouse suggests that the SEC Ripple fine could be paid in XRP. Pay attention to this. A lot more open to new ideas. These fields should grow here in the US. What's left of the $125 million you had saved up in that little fund in case the worst happened? Please give us some. The SEC is going to get $50 million, 0 cents in the end. There will be $50 million, 0 cents for the US government. We've even talked about letting people buy that with XRP. But look, it's the end of the day. That's where Brad Garlinghouse talks about the thought that this fine could be paid with XRP. Usually, I'd just ignore things like this, but I think there's one very interesting note here. The SEC pretty much threw out all the cases, right? A lot of the time, people like Richard Hart and Hex, who were running open scams, got away with it when the SEC sued them. The most interesting thing about the Ripple case is that Ripple still had to pay a fine. Of course, that doesn't make much sense to me since I thought it would equal 0. But I want to know if there was a chance that Ripple and the SEC met and Ripple said, hey, we're okay paying you some money as long as you take it in XRP and don't sell it. I don't think it's that impossible for Ripple to have gotten the fine lowered to 0. In fact, the SEC was dropping every single case they were working on. Still, I was surprised that Ripple paid any money at all. But after that talk, I'm starting to wonder if Brad Garlinghouse basically said, hey, we'll still pay some of the fine. It can't be sold and must be paid for in XRP. If that happened, the US Treasury would basically have XRP on its books. And this is something that would be huge for XRP in the future. One of the main reasons this would be such a big deal is that XRP is already useful in that way. A lot of people who are against XRP have said that it's likely that Ripple will work with the US government and use XRP as a wholesale cross-vendor payment option. Ripple now has to pay a fine that they probably didn't need to, which pretty much takes away everyone's hope that the fine could be paid in XRP. I really believe that there is something more important going on here and that Ripple is trying to find a way to give XRP to the US government. I don't see any other reason Ripple should have had to pay this fine. I do find this whole idea very interesting, though. I also think that Ripple is trying to get XRP into the hands of the US Treasury in some way. Another really interesting thing is that things would be very different if the US actually used XRP for useful things than they are now with Bitcoin. On stage, Cynthia Loomis mostly just talked about how Bitcoin could be used to settle the national debt. And I think this is such a silly talk because Bitcoin can be used to help pay off the national debt. If the US bought a lot of Bitcoin, the value of that Bitcoin went up a lot, and then they sold it. But really, it's just the US government betting that the price of a Bitcoin token will go up. Not that they're using Bitcoin for anything that would help solve the debt problem. They are basically guessing how the price of Bitcoin will change as an asset, and it doesn't look like it will help pay off the bill. They are going to get rid of Bitcoin and use the money to pay off some of their debt. So I think it's funny that the US government is even thinking about what to do with Bitcoin. People who support this strategy are saying that we'll buy Bitcoin, hold on to it for a few years, and then sell it. In what way does that really make that bullish for what Bitcoin is? Bitcoin was meant to be a way for people to pay each other after all. It's now just talk that the US government might flip it to pay off some debt. Not sure what they want to do with Bitcoin or what their main idea is. They are going to keep the Bitcoin. That would be fine. Yes, the treasure would be theirs. It would hold some Bitcoin for them. That's great. But if the plan is only to get rid of the Bitcoin to pay off some debt, I mean, that wouldn't really excite me as a Bitcoiner. I think it's even less likely when you look at what's being suggested on the XRP level. If it were possible to get XRP to be used for something on a big scale by institutions, especially the US government, that's not the same as the US basically selling Bitcoin for cash. I only wanted to bring that to your attention because I find it very interesting how everything fits together. I believe that Ripple should have had no fine, and now Ripple is talking about paying this fine, which I find strange. They might have been okay with it if the money was paid in XRP. There have been rumors that Ripple is working with the US government on a number of next-generation payment systems. This makes me wonder if this is just an interesting way for the US government to get some XRP. But enough about that. I want to talk about the XRP price trend now because XRP is making a great comeback. I told you that XRP really needed to get back above this area. At this very moment, XRP is really taking back this level and, more importantly, starting a new trend. We had this fear, even though XRP has pretty much held this $2.00 area, the market won't make this easy for people, that's for sure. So we had to go below it to scare people and make them think we were really going below $2.00. In a very short time, XRP returned. The more important thing is that XRP is kind of getting above that structure that would crash. The trend is now changing. It's no longer down. XRP still needs to do a little more work here right now before we can start going up. I think it needs to get to that 225 area and stay there for a while to really confirm this long-term bottom turnaround pattern. But if XRP can stay at these levels, it will look absolutely amazing and, in my opinion, really change the way we talk about this crash. It looks like the market is getting over a lot of the news about tariffs. It looks like a lot of the taxes are being lifted and they're trying to make the market look better. XRP is responding amazingly to all of this. In the end, it's because these taxes didn't really affect XRP. People sold it for whatever reason because the market was scared. But now XRP is regaining value very quickly because everyone is saying that none of this was even remotely negative for XRP at all. It might have even been pretty optimistic. If we can get XRP to recover up to the 250 level and start trading above that, we'll be back in a great position for XRP to really start focusing on those higher levels. A full recovery from the crash, getting out of the danger zone, and then pushing through some of those glass ceilings to reach a new all-time high. After all of that, there is one more interesting thing to keep an eye on. How much money has come into XRP to actually make this rebound happen? Surprisingly few people have joined. That was just written by Zach Rector. The XRP market count multiplier, which shows how much money is coming into XRP to move the market cap, is at a 601 right now. So with only $12 million 0 cents coming in, and $12 million 0 cents isn't much when it comes to the amount of paper money that institutions need, we are seeing changes in XRP's market cap of about $7,800,000,000.